of that building. This is a little balcony that hangs over the river, the riverside of the Selma Hall, and the entrance that you see there towards the end goes into the dining room, and the one where I'm standing is into the parlor of that building. When George Ingram Barnett brought his plans down there and started to build, he soon found out that it didn't fit on that ridge that they had picked out for the site of this Selma Hall. So he had to build big bastions of rock up to hold up that side of the building. So from this wall out hangs over the side of a cliff, a high cliff, and that makes it, of course, better for the people to see the river and see up and down the river, but it was real hard on the architect and the builders when they were building this castle, but it was one of their problems that they had to overcome down there. This is at the time that the Shocks lived down there. They more or less let it grow up in with ivy, and I wanted to call your attention to the rockwork of the entrance there. This is called the carriage entrance, generally referred to as a carriage entrance, and it's on the north side. The main entrance was on the south side, and the reason for that was that everything in those days, at the time it was built, was oriented to the river. The people came off the river, and they shipped things from the river. The office was from that side, and all of their activities were out in the other entrance, and that's why it is called the front entrance, and this one is called the carriage entrance. These are pictures. It shows what it looks like down there. This is probably the best profile of the castle. It shows almost everything that is down there. Shows the different elevations and the tower and the little balconies and everything. One of the problems they did have there was water for their bathrooms and things like that. So they have a cistern up on top of one of the hills. I forgot to tell you, a cistern up there, and they have a pipeline running down underground, comes up into a big copper tank sitting on top of the roof there, and that's their water system. That's where they get their pressure. When the Mississippi Few bought the property, one of the things that worried Bill Marbury, was the crimp in the entrance top, and so that one of the first things that Bill did when he acquired the property was to repair that crimp that he did not like. Made it very beautiful. This is the tower. It shows the wonderful workmanship that went into this old building. All the rock masonry and the balconies and things like that. Just cut stone around the windows and the side walls and the corners and places like that. This is another view of it, of the tower, and shows some of the windows there. I think it was in 1934, I think, that they had a disastrous fire down there. And both of these pictures were taken from the same place. This is before the fire, when they had all of the walls were paneled with wood, and they had this large stairway. Over here is the effects of the fire on that side of the building. The fire was a slow burning fire, and it actually didn't do too much damage to the walls. And it was, and when they rebuilt it this time, when the Shocks rebuilt it, they rebuilt it fireproof. So there's no chance now of ever having a fire down there again. But it was a disaster at that time. Fortunately, they carried out most of the furniture, and a lot of the things like that could be carried out while the fire was in progress. But it had to be rebuilt almost in its entirety. About, I think it cost $125,000 to build originally, but I think the initial contract that was given to the Shocks was around well over $400,000, and probably much more than that by the time they finished it. This is a picture on the inside. These are old pictures before the fire, and you can imagine these are 20 feet high ceilings, and what a length that they had to have on the of a stairway like this with a 20-foot ceiling. So it's actually a very long stairway. And this, at the time that we were children, young people, we would go down there. It was all decorated with animals. They had animal heads, trophies. It was a country club sort of a deal, a lodge. And they had these stuffed animal heads all up and down the hall and in the dining room and different places. Elk and moose and...
Well, was somebody a big game hunter?
George Brookings, when he made it into a more or less a country...
a man's club.
A man's club. He was a bachelor, and that's the way he thought, and that's the way his the decor was in his time. Yeah. This shows one of the bedrooms. Yeah,
first floor.
What we've got here.
That's the first floor.
First floor. Mm-hmm. I don't know how we're getting this. I didn't think these are some of the some of the pictures before the fire, and show some of the furniture and things that were down there. These are, I might be going a little bit too fast here, but shows the how it was furnished and different things about it. Now this was after the Shocks moved down there, or shortly after they moved down there, because it shows some of the old wallpaper that's down there at present. There are several buildings attached to this complex down there. One of them is the building you see here in the foreground, and that's the servants' quarters. The one over there that's covered with ivy is the Selma Hall itself. The servants' quarters is quite a big building in itself, and they've made it into a guest house. And I counted how many people it would sleep, and it sleeps around 25 people now. And they've taken the old kitchen in there and made it into a club room for the guests that come down there. This is inside of the club room in the servants' quarters there. This used to be the kitchen, this part here, now the club room down there. These are all pictures inside. Another building they have down there is a clubhouse. Now this was built by the Mississippi Fuel when they owned it, Fuel and Transmission Company. They have a big lake up there. They have skeet shooting. They have all kinds of trails and hunting and things of that nature for the people that come down from the offices down there. But mostly it's poker tables and things, eating, a good kitchen. They have a very modern kitchen down there, and all of these poker tables that you see around there. This is the carriage entrance, and we're going to take a tour through there. The way in the back, you'll see some things that indicates that it is a kitchen, and it is a kitchen today. But in the days that Mrs. Kenneth lived there, that was her bedroom. This is inside of the hallway that runs from one end of the building to the other. And this is the steps going up from one floor to the other. The whole, the part downstairs is 20 feet high. The ceilings are 20 feet high, and you can imagine the problems they had building such a long stairway, and also the problems they have with curtains and other fixtures in there. Everything has to be sort of in proportion.
It's all oversized.
It's all oversized down there, that's right. This is in the dining room. The dining room will seat about 20 people. It's a tremendously long table, and in there they have now taken down all of these stuffed animal heads and made it, when the shocks came there, they took all of this out, and they put a wallpaper in there. The wallpaper, I understand, she bought in Paris, France, and it was a Frenchman that painted this wallpaper on canvas, and she procured this wallpaper there in Paris, France, and we'll see more of it here. And it is American scenes. This would be Chesapeake Bay, and over here would be the Natural Bridge in Virginia, and shows scenes that we associate with Virginia. But this one here is another picture where there is another one of these wallpaper scenes, and that's in the White House in Washington, D.C. So they have the same wallpaper design as we have in our Jefferson County Selma Hall. We are all looking in the silver room where they keep the silver locked up. They have massive silver for the table there, and this is our glimpse of that massive silver spoons and all the serving pieces and things like that. And over here to the side you see wallpaper that depicts that one there, I think, is San Francisco Bay. In this little vestibule, when we were young people, this was the post office. They had moved the post office into this area here, and they had little cubby holes over to your left that where they kept the mail for people that came to call on the mail. And between my son and this doorway that you see here was a half door with a shelf, and it had a bell on it. And when we would go down there to the castle, we would first, this was the only entrance we could get into the castle, was in this entrance here. So we would go to this entrance, this little vestibule, and go in there and ring the bell. And then the caretaker, which was old Nels, he was a colored fellow that was a caretaker. Nelson was his name, but everybody called him Nels. And he was a character around Crystal. He'd come into Crystal to get his supplies and things like that, and everybody knew Nels. And he would say, "Come on in, you children." He said, "I'm so lonesome down here." He said, "Just come in," and he said, "I want to talk to you." And but we were always welcome to go there to this little vestibule and talk to old Nels. One of the things that I remember about Nels, every time we went down there and we would go in this room, this was the library, but in this library they had a big poker table, tremendous big poker table that I guess Brookings, being a bachelor, I guess he played poker and had this poker set up there. Anyhow, Nels would say, every time we went down there, he'd bring, come over here, I want to show you children something. And he'd say, right there's where they killed him, right there. And he'd show us where there was a shot in the floor where they had a man had been killed. He said, they caught him cheating, and they killed him right there.
He was giving you a lesson in morality,
that's
wasn't
right.
he?
That's right. But it was in this room here in the library. All the estates in those days, of course, had to have a library with all the classics and literature of the that people were supposed to read, and most of them didn't. But these are all scenes in the library down there.
And I see they have the traditional pineapple wallpaper, which is, in Virginia, was welcome.
I think that is right. There it shows my son and one of his friends there examining a shaving mug collection they have down there. And the shaving mugs were procured all over St. Louis, and a lot of the mayors of St. Louis and politically famous people and business people, their mugs finally ended up down there.
In Jefferson County.
In Jefferson County, yes. This is still in that room there. This is in the ballroom or the reception room. And if you see pictures of debutantes coming out, this is in the room in generally which the pictures are taken, because it is a very beautiful room. This is where they have a ball. They roll up the rugs here and have their dances and things like that. This is all inside of this ballroom or reception room. The old piano that survived the fire is in this room. And it reminds me of when we were young, we used to go down there and have sing-along. In those days, it was popular to young folks to gather around the piano and have a sing-along. And we had people along that could play the piano, like Ella Maud Bailey. There was other people that would have along with us. Charlotte Tim was one of them that could play the piano. And these girls would play and we would sing as loud as we could, but it wasn't good.
Excuse me, tell us about the sofa. Is that the sofa?
No, that is not the sofa that has the story attached to it. Okay. It's in this room here. This is in the parlor, and Mrs. Schock gathered these antiques from all over Europe, in London, and all over France, and in Vienna and different places. One of the things that she had was that couch that you see back in that bay window that actually hangs over the bluff, so that she can sit in that couch and look up the river or down the river and still have conversation with her guests there. And she found this over in the Loire Valley in France, where they make the world's famous furniture. It's supposed to be the furniture design place of the world where the best furniture is made. Well, anyhow, she was over there and she found this piece that she knew would fit right in this little niche. So she says in her own words, and I heard her say this, she later say this, that she haggled 3 days to get it down to a price she could live with. Now, those are about the words that she used. And she said that after 3 days of haggling, she finally caved in and bought the piece. And then she stood there and watched them crate it, put it in crate, and mark it so that it would get back to Selma intact. And Louis Devoto tells this story. He worked for Mrs. Schock, and he says They had it in a crate, and when they turned it upside down, and there was a label on there, the manufacturer's name, made in Milwaukee. It was, they say that Mrs. Schock was really put out about that couch. This is the hallway from the south entrance, or the main entrance. And we go up to the upstairs here. And in the upstairs here, when George Ingham Barnett designed the castle, one of the things that he put in there was a chapel for Mrs. Schock, for Julia. Julia was a Catholic, and she wanted a chapel in the castle, and this was the only place that he could put it in, and he had it in there and it was used until the time that Brookings had it, and Brookings had it taken out. But people all around that neighborhood there would come and have a mass there whenever they could get a hold of a priest. They could run a priest down. These priests that they call them riders, I believe, or something. But this was where the chapel was. And by the way, Mrs. Kenneth was a cripple. She was paralyzed on the left side, but she could play the piano, and she had a big, strong, colored slave that would carry her up and down these steps. They didn't have an elevator, and she could take care of the rooms, see that the rooms were maintained upstairs as well as downstairs. And this colored fellow would carry her up and down these stairs that you see there. This is in the master bedroom. We're going to have better pictures of this is the canopy in there. This is the bed in the master bedroom, and it's quite a show place as when you're down there. It's really a beautiful bed. These are some of the beds in the bedrooms, the all canopy beds. These all survived the fire. They carried, the people in the neighborhood carried these beds and the furniture out, and they're still used down there today. Mm-hmm. This one is called the pie crust, and you can see why it was given a name like this. These little bedrooms are in the lofts of the tower. When we were running around down there as children, they had ladders running from one loft to the other, and there's 4 lofts. So you climbed one ladder, then you walked around, you got on another ladder, you climbed it to the next loft until you finally got to the top, and then you had a view of the surrounding territory from the top of the tower. But now then, when Mrs. Schock and the Schocks had it rebuilt, they put a stairway that zigzags to the top, and it's in back of a wall. This is and each loft has its own entrance there. If you're on top of the tower and you look up the valley, it's now in hayfields for the herd of cattle that they have down there, and of course they have a lot of deer and turkey and a lot of other wild animals down there. But if you look up the valley, over the top of the barns and the different buildings there, you can see almost the full length of the valley that they have cleared, and you get a glimpse of where the slaves were quartered, and at the very crest of the hill would be about where I-55 comes through, goes south. If you look south from the top of the tower, you get this view of the shot tower bluff there, and on the crest of those hills is where the ridge tops was where the big orchards were that Brookings had when he was there. If you look along the river north, you can see the Cedar Hill, and that is where Smith T. and Kenneth are buried. If you look straight down, you can see the carriage entrance drive. If you look south along the river, you can see Towhead, and that is where the big power plant is built there today.
Rush Island.
Rush Island. To all of us, it's Towhead. This is a picture of Kenneth, and we went through the story of Kenneth in other parts of the program. So we'll go to the gardens that are down there. This is a picture of the gardens from the balcony, the formal gardens and the swimming pool. In the very early stages, this was an early picture before the some of the other facilities were built there, like the pavilion, and they now have a greenhouse and a lot of other things down there. But this is a very, very early part of the when the formal gardens was laid out. This is also early times. That's my son there, and now he's now 40 years old, so you could see how old this picture is. And my daughter. This is Mrs. Shetzley, Mac Shetzley, and holding my son there at the top of the tower. He had to go to the top of the tower, or he wouldn't have been a boy. But in the background, you can see the layout of the formal gardens, that it's there. This is a picture from the top of the tower, and it shows the gardens and the pavilion, the swimming pool, tennis courts, and all of the things that are down there, or was down there when the shocks were there. The only thing that's not there now is the formal gardens. The little fountain is still there, and the paths are still there, but is now a part of the just the landscape down there. This is a shot from the top of the tower, and it shows the old road right underneath of us here that hauled the lead to the river that made possible the building of this magnificent old mansion. I guess that finishes us up, Betty.
Frank, I want to thank you for taking us on a trip to Selma Hall and taking us through a part of Jefferson County that a lot of people don't get a chance to see. And thank you, Jefferson College, and hopefully we'll see you again at the next program of our Jefferson County Heritage.